recap. Two angels, disguised as men, came to the city of Sodom, and like guests usually do, or did back in those days, they headed to the center of town to sleep in the square. But Lot saw them as they came in the city gate, and he said, "Come and stay with me." He was rather quite insistent. He didn't suggest or tell them why. He just said, "Come." So they went, and they went to his house, and he fed them and found them places to sleep. But before anything could really happen, the men of Sodom, and it says all the men of Sodom, both young and old. Let's consider how many men that might be. Estimates of the population of Sodom at that time, this would be about 5,000 years ago, were somewhere between 1,000 and 2,200. Let's start with 1,000. About half of them are going to be males. So this gives us about 500 males. And about half of those will be under the age of 14, and therefore not men, but boys. So we have about 250 men, old and young. If we go with the higher number, 2,200, we end up with 550 men, old and young. That's a lot of people around the house. So let's assume that there's some hyperbole in there, a little bit of exaggeration. And we'll say that around 100 to 200 men surrounded Lot's house. That's still quite a few people. And what did they say? Well, the key word, and everything hinges on the word know. K-N-O-W. Or more specifically, they hinge on the Hebrew word that we translate as to know. What does it mean? Well, many have suggested that it's referring to sex. But when we look at this word, we find that its semantic range also includes friendship and acquaintance. So we have to ask ourselves, okay, we have a group of men, 100, 200 men. Even that might be a little exaggerated. Maybe there's 50 to 100 men. Under any circumstances, there were a lot of men. And Sodom is on the edge of a desert. Trees aren't plentiful, so wood has to be imported, which makes wood expensive. So the houses are built out of stone and adobe and mortar, the materials that are easily available on the southern end of the Dead Sea, on the edge of the desert. And of course, the men of Sodom did not actually want to break down Lot's door. Lot was a citizen of the city, or at least they had accepted him as a citizen of the city, so they didn't want to damage his house. So they want to get those two men to come out of the house so they can do whatever it is they intend to do. And that's the question. So what did they say? Did they run up to the house and say, "Hey, Lot, send your two guests out so we can hurt them. We want to rape them. We want to have sex with them. We want to do something evil." From a psychological, humanological point of view, no, they didn't say that. Seriously, they did not say that. They would have said something innocuous. And we look at the story, and Lot's first words are, "I beg you, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. Now, if they had just said they were going to do something wicked, it would be rather redundant for Lot to actually say, don't act so wickedly. More likely, he would just say, hey, don't do this. So this is another clue that these men, the men of Sodom, did not say that they wanted to have sex with Lot's guests. They said something innocuous like, Lot, send your guests out so we can make their acquaintance. The implication being that they wanted to know and make sure that these two men are not going to pose a threat to their families, their wives, their children. Another clue that tells us that they didn't say something actually wicked, but something innocuous, is what the men of Sodom say next. They say, this fellow came here as an alien, and he would play the judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them. Lot isn't playing the game. Lot has lived there for several years. They had initially accepted him as one of them, but now he's not playing the game. He's not cooperating. And he let the cat out of the bag and said that whatever it is they wanted to do, that it was wicked, evil. And so now they're going to treat him even worse. So going back, we can be 100% certain that the correct translation is, the men of Sodom said, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we may make their acquaintance. That's what they said. That's what they intended. Any other translation or any other interpretation is wrong from the perspective of simple human psychology, human understanding, and reasonable behavior. Lot also offered his daughter. After he said, don't do this wicked thing, he said, look, I have two daughters who are virgins. They've never known a man. Take them and do as you please. Now, of course, when you initially interpret the verb to know as meaning we want to have sex with them, then it's easy to look at this and think, oh, well, this is an alternative to having sex with the two men. We're going to have sex with the daughter. No. In fact, the last thing in the world Lot would have thought is that they were going to have sex with his daughter. No. The reference to their virginity is a reference to their value. Daughters get a bride price. Essentially, fathers sell their daughters to be brides. So when he says, do as you please, he basically means, well, one or two of you can take them as wives yourself, or you can sell them to the next caravan that comes through. As wives to them. You make money. It's a bride. Lot is offering them financial value not to do anything bad to his two guests who come under his roof. Now you may be wondering why I talked about population. And it's very simple. if that's what they intended to do, then why did so many come out? Are you suggesting that they were all voyeurs and wanted to watch? And if so, how do they decide who's going to actually get to have sex and who won't? Another clue, of course, is young and old. Well, the old men, they're not there to have sex. And they're not there to watch either. So it comes down to the question, what did the men of Sodom actually intend to do with Lot's guests? The answer is quite simple. They intended to eject them from the city. If you've ever been in the desert at night, you know that the temperature drops precipitously. Even in the summer, it can drop 30, even 40 degrees. And it can drop down to 50 or 60 degrees, which is cool enough so that a person who is not dressed properly could suffer from hypothermia and even die. Clothing was made by hand back then, and it was expensive. Most people couldn't afford a lot of clothing. They had a cloak and a coat. And hypothermia was a distinct possibility if they were ejected from the city. Because the city is going to stay warmer than outside the city. If you'll recall, I pointed out that the houses were made out of stone and adobe. Well, stone and adobe have the natural ability to retain heat and then give it off slowly. So during the day, with the sun beating down on this city, the stone, the adobe, even the stone walls are going to acquire heat. They're going to warm up. And then after the sun sets, they're going to start giving off that heat. Since they're in a closed area, there's a wall around the city, the wind is not going to blow the warm air away. And in fact, what you will achieve is what is known as a temperature inversion, where a cold layer of air comes in over the top of the city and presses down, and the warm air can't rise, and the cold air can't settle. So the warm air is contained within the city. So the temperature in the city, even in the summer, well, especially in the summer, is going to stay 20, 30 degrees warmer than outside the city. So being outside the city is potentially fatal. And when we look at Ezekiel 16:48 through 50, which tells us that the city was destroyed because they were inhospitable. They had plenty but did not share. We see that that is the only reasonable interpretation to this text. The men of Sodom, the sheer number of them suggested that whatever they were going to do, they needed numbers to keep them from fighting too hard. And those numbers suggest that what they were going to do was not have sex. The truth is, sex is not actually mentioned anywhere in Genesis 1 through 11, Genesis 19, 1 through 11, if you interpret it and translate it correctly. Now I find that many individuals who are trying to handle the so-called clobber passages, that they look at this package and they are biased towards thinking that it is about sex. And so they say that it's about rape, and that there's nothing wrong with two men having sex as long as it's consensual. But there is, of course, something wrong with rape. Well, that's true. There is something wrong with rape, and consensual sex almost certainly was allowable and acceptable. But here, they're not talking about rape. They're not talking about sex at all. Certainly not homosexual sex or homosexual rape. They're talking about hospitality. Hospitality is a sacred duty. Read through the Bible. It comes up many times. Maybe not in so many words, but it does come up. Earlier, we see where Abraham, when the three men came up to his tent, immediately went and begged them to stay at his house and eat and rest their feet and wash their feet. He's offering them water. He's in the desert. He butchers a lamb and cooks it, which is going to take like 4 or 5 hours. As his wife baked bread, she's got to make the bread, she's got to let it rise, and she's got to bake it. So we're talking 3 hours there. But anyway, I mean, he had them stay all day, and he was insistent upon it because Abraham knew that this was a sacred duty, and hospitality is a sacred duty, even today. Because when you love your neighbor, you're going to be hospitable. Period. We sometimes lose that because we have government agencies, we have charitable places that handle the hospitality. And we sometimes feel that that relieves us of the responsibility of being hospitable. It doesn't. I'm not saying that you need to let people into your house and eat your food, but that you need to make sure that they're in a shelter, that they get food somewhere, and that they are properly cared for. It doesn't matter whether you do it yourself or whether you take them someplace where it will happen, or direct them someplace where it will happen. Abraham knew it. Lot knew it. Most of the people in the Bible knew it. But we've forgotten it. And we need to relearn. Hospitality is a sacred duty. And that's what the men of Sodom didn't have. They were not hospitable. They did not do